Okay, this is my second time recording this theory because I've decided to change the theory as the original one was just like honestly insane. I tried to connect Rouxls Kard to the mystery, but yeah. So as a note, a lot of this is different from the original. Quick note before the video starts, I just want to apologise for not having a theory out in the last 8 months. University has been a lot, and also just personal projects like me working on my own RPG. And I would like to also apologise for saying I would come back to making theories 4 months ago and then not making any theories after that. I am back now. I'm probably going to do 2 theories a month rather than 1 theory a week now. But I'll try have a third one this month, just as an apology for not being around as much. Anyway, on with the video. What if there was a mystery that, while everyone at the start was really interested in, just like vanished out of nowhere? I think that actually did happen in the Deltarune community. Hi, my name is Clover B. Clover, but you can just call me Robin, and this is my Song from the Code theory. Now then, you might be going, what mystery was forgotten about? Like, what could have possibly happened that made us all just forget about a mystery? Well, in Chapter 1, there was a lot of mysteries set up, but we didn't know where any of them would go, so we were looking for any patterns. So when Chapter 2 came out and some got continued, those became important mysteries to us. And one of the most important, in my opinion, was W.OGG and D.OGG. For those who don't know, in Chapter 1, only in the Bowser game, there's a sound effect simply labelled WOGG that plays during the Golem Maker when your vessel gets discarded. And then in Chapter 2, there was another sound file within the game, only 1 letter long, labelled D.OGG that plays in a weird route, and even though this time it was a real song, again, nobody, it just, had no appearance in any other thing outside of the game and the files, not even appearing on the Spotify soundtrack. Now, if this mission was so big, where did it go and why did it stop? Most people at the time thought it was going to spell like Gaster or WD Gaster or something, so we assumed Chapter 3 would have a G song in it. However, when Chapter 3 came out, no file was found with a single letter, and Chapter 4, while having a file with a single letter being C.OGG, that song was also in the soundtrack, so people couldn't really figure out if it was part of the same mystery, causing everything to slowly stop. But it's my job today to convince you that not only does this mystery continue to Chapter 3 and 4, but also to try and give my idea of what the answer is. But more importantly, to try and just open up discussion again on this topic, as it's one that's very interesting to me. Without further ado, on to the mystery. I plan to try and figure out, number 1, what the missing letters are for Chapter 3 and kind of for Chapter 4. Number 2, figure out what the point of the C letter is if it's not actually a part of the mystery. Number 3, figure out what all of these letters mean. Like, what do they stand for and what point do they have? Let's start off with figuring out the missing letters. Alright, let's start off with an easy one. Chapter 3. I was just going to do a bit where I was like, oh, I can't figure it out, I didn't remember what I could, but honestly, Chapter 3's one is told to us in the game what the letter is, at least. Even though it's on the files, there is a very interesting thing that happens in Chapter 3. When you're naming yourself in the board, you are not able to put G down as the third option whatsoever. This is interesting since any other swear word you try to put in will only censor the third letter if you have the first 2 letters, but G is cut out of the third option's alphabet entirely, and you can't put it no matter what you put in for the first 2 letters. Now, this obviously represents how, in the 3rd chapter of Deltarune, the G file that we do expect to see there is missing. So I do actually think that Chapter 3's file name would be G.OGG, but it's somehow gone away or has gone missing, which does obviously connect it to a certain someone, but more on that later. Chapter 4 is more interesting since that has a letter, but it's in the soundtrack, so it feels weird to use it. However, in the files of the game, there are, not in the files of the game, in the Spamton Sweepstakes, you could find a page that could tell you called Chapter 4 that could take you to 2 file names. One of them being e.mp3 and one of them being m.mp3. I'm using m.mp3 for now, but honestly you could also use e. And I'm going to say that M is the letter for Chapter 4, with C being more of a red herring. Okay, saying C is a red herring is wrong. C is important still to the mystery, but less as a part of the mystery, and more as like an answer key to the mystery, since we know C stands for Carol. In a note to Asgore, it's labelled C, as in like from Carol, and the song C plays when Carol walks in, and it's a very cold song, and it's literally made out of like bell sound, like a jingling bell sound effects, like Santa. So I think, using the idea that the letters are supposed to be character names, we can then figure out pretty easily that the D is supposed to stand for Des, the G is supposed to stand for Gaster, and then the M is probably supposed to stand for Man, or as in the Forgotten Man. You might have noticed I skipped over W, and honestly, my original theory did go over this, but I think W is supposed to stand for water, and it's supposed to represent the 2 vessels, Chris and the Gonamaker vessel. Chris is very clearly connected to water, likely through the connection to Des and the fact Des has some weird thing with water, along with the Holiday family. Also, there's a lot of things with Chris being blue in the Dark World, like they drowned, and when you first enter Dark World as Chris, there's wave sound effects. Another interesting point for the Gono vessel is the background that plays is literally of the ocean, connecting both vessels to water. So I think the W stands for water more as a representation of the 2 vessels. Also, if you want to say this, W can be made of 2 V's to put together, and then V can stand for vessel, and there's 2 of them. But that's a little bit... That's kind of a look into how insane the original theory was. Okay. Originally, the theory had a lot more Rouxls Kard in it, and I figured out a way you could change each letter to spell out Rouxls Kard's name. However, I'm just going to say, I think Rouxls Kard is supposed to give us hints on who the letters are meant to be, like, stand-ins for. I had this thought, like, as a little shower thought, when I realised that Rouxls Kard in Chapter 3 kind of represents December holiday. As we know, El Nina and La Nino are supposed to represent Toriel and Asgore's breakup with the eyes of Chris. It would make sense then that the person who kind of keeps them apart, even though it's not directly their fault, would represent whoever did that to Asgore and Toriel, with that person then being Rouxls Kard in Chapter 3. And then in Chapter 4, Rouxls Kard covers his face and is not present in the actual Dark World. This is connected to Gaster not showing up with a G and being missing from his chapter, and also Rouxls Kard's face is very similar to Gaster's in a lot of ways, and the fact that the chapter after his face portrait uses hands to speak, he covers up his face, means that he's very clearly connecting himself to Gaster in some way, or disconnecting himself from Gaster, like how Gaster disconnected himself from the mystery in some way. So, I think Rouxls Kard in some way represents the chapter before's letter character, meaning that Chapter 2's Rouxls Kard could be used to figure out who that was. I think if we look at what happens in Chapter 2, Rouxls Kard has a boat that then falls away to reveal another boat. And the other boat is actually the Thrash Machine, the one that we made. The Thrash Machine is interesting, so a lot of people have pointed this out already, but it seems to be very connected to the Gunner vessel, as it's something we create that immediately gets discarded, and also starts out grey when you're making it, and then it gets brought back later, which makes a lot of people think the vessel will be brought back later. So the idea that there is one boat that we didn't make, and then behind the boat, or even inside the boat, is a representation of the vessel. One connects to what I said already, of the W standing for both of the vessels, but also then shows the idea that the vessel is a stand-in for the player in some way, with the Gunner maker, the vessel in this metaphor, being literally inside the other vessel, e.g. Chris, like how the soul is inside of Chris, and gets discarded, like how in chapter 3 it says that Chris was used up. Okay, honestly, if you guys were interested in me going into the full theory I had originally, where I basically used the length of the songs and the files, put it each letter into a Caesar cipher with them, and it spelled out Rouxls Kard. Let me know. I'll do an explanation of it in the comments maybe. But the video was like 50 minutes long. I didn't want my first video to be that long, and it just was deranged. I hope that this version of the mystery can be a little bit more, well, not as satisfying, but be a little bit more understandable and make more sense. Although there's still one thing I'd like to bring up. Why would Rouxls Kard be impersonating the different characters with each letter, when all we know is Rouxls Kard likes to impersonate whoever the head boss is? Because, you know, he likes to be people's right-hand man. Well, what if each of these letters are supposed to represent a character who is currently fighting for the prophecy in some way? I mean, if you, it's an idea, but honestly, I'm gonna leave you guys with this theory. If you like to see me go into the full, like, deranged theory, I might try to do that next month. But the whole point of this theory was more to reopen the discussion on this mystery, and hope some people will have other ideas. And even if you only agree with, like, oh, the G idea I had with the first chapter being the G letter, if you only agree with that, then that's great. You can then use that to make your own theories, and then replace the things you don't agree with things you do agree with. Honestly, I just want to see what people come up with. Without further ado, thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing and hyping the video. And also maybe keep an eye out. I might have a trailer for something coming up soon. But honestly, that will all come in due time. Oh yeah, also I don't know what the chapter 6 and 7 are gonna be, but chapter 5 might be H, since the H letter is found in sweepstakes. That was more integral to my original theory, but yeah, that's found though. Yeah, 6 and 7 I don't really know.